Let's aim for finishing episode 9 in a half hour.
Okay.
Got it?
I think we'll be done before that, but okay.
With 9?
Maybe.
I'm sure you have a lot of BS. I love Ellie to talk about. All right. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I'm Tim Wilde.
Now I'm Josh Edlow.
And it is preparation day for us in our non-proselyting attire where we're not dressed up today. We're taking a break just like missionaries do. But we're still going to get out our final review of the Cobra Kai series, episodes 9 and 10. Different but same, and mercy. And we are going to dive right into this because, this has been the big build-up for Josh's favorite episode because he's so nostalgic, and it's just nauseating how much they crammed into this episode for all the super fans like Josh.
Nauseating?
Well, it was a lot of fun to watch, but yeah, they did a big initiative to cram as much in here, and it was fine. I loved it, but again, not as good of an episode as Counterbalance, but it's still entertaining to watch.
Well, you're wrong. But let me say that I think as a passionate Karate Kid fan, I think the scene in the bar, and we'll get to it, I'm sure. We will because it's in this episode. That scene in the bar is everything that I've ever wanted to see from the Karate Kid since the movies came out. So super excited about it, and I loved every minute of it. So exciting. But this episode doesn't start with anything exciting. It starts with a horrible 80s skateboard, swimming pool, half pipe sequence, and we know why it started that way because. In the last episode, wasn't that last episode? Daniel taught Robbie the special magic Jedi Dagobah handstand double kick move. And he taught him that you have to have balance. And so now we have Robbie in a totally outdated freestyle skating method, trying to go up this half pipe to land on his hand to master the one hand stand. Wait a minute.
This was just ridiculous with 80s skateboard nostalgia, and it was just dumb because no one skateboards in half pipes in empty swimming pools anymore. There are skate parks everywhere, and I think it was ridiculous that they did that. What, Josh?
Wasn't that a half pipe? That wasn't a pool.
I swear it's a skate or a swimming pool. I swear it's a swimming pool.
It's made of wood. What are you talking about?
It's a swimming pool. You look it up. I'll wait.
I'm not going to look it up. We're doing our review. But I would agree with you that I didn't. So this reminded me of this whole sequence, kind of reminded me a little bit about the same way that Daniel on the beach, kind of.
Oh, come on.
No. I'm not saying it's as good. I'm saying
it's crap.
That a little bit because if you remember, Daniel saw Mr. Miyagi doing the crane kick, and then later he was out on his own doing the crane kick on the stumps up at the beach.
He was doing it on the rowboat. He didn't go to the beach.
He did. He didn't try the crane kick in the rowboat. That was just him trying to do balance. He tried to do
yeah. Okay, you're right. Whatever.
Don't question me on this. This is my thing. So anyway, so there's a little remnant of that, and this was just Robbie trying to learn that in his own way, which I guess that makes sense. But they just went a little overboard with the trying to learn karate through various methods that aren't karate-esque. But I mean, it was fine, but it was not. It was a little corny. So
okay, so hang on. Let me just say, I just pulled it up, and yes, he is at a skate park, but there's like blue tile along the very top of the ramp that's going up and down. Totally makes it look like a swimming pool. So whatever, that's just crappy shooting. I withdraw my complaint. But it was this dumb sequence anyway. It was just to show off 80s skateboarding and show off how cool Robbie is. Can I say I hate Robbie more than I hate Daniel? But go ahead.
Wow, that's shocking. Now you have an irrational hatred of Robbie as well. And
he
also,
is so annoying.
and I also want to point out that this is a historic moment in Saints on Cinema because Tim Wilde has withdrawn a complaint. That's the first time that's ever happened.
No, that happened before, didn't it?
Nope, pretty sure it didn't. But anyway,
Are you implying that I'm stubborn?
I'm implying that you complain a lot. So anyway, we go from there to a scene that I absolutely love. It's a scene where Johnny shows up at Daniel's house. And it's just so funny because Amanda LaRusso says what everybody's thinking, and that here are two grown men in their 50s, old karate rivals, about to karate fight in the 21st century over this thing, and how ridiculous that kind of sounds. And with the way she puts it, they kind of realize we're kind of being ridiculous. So
I have a question before we go any further into that scene. We left the last episode at the end where they torched his car, Johnny's car, at his apartment, and then he goes up to Louis and says, "What's Daniel's address? Where does he live?" And then he jumps on the guy, steals the guy's motorcycle, and takes off in nighttime, okay? Now he shows up at breakfast. Where was he all this time?
How do you know that wasn't just at 4:30 in the morning or something, and he got there?
Okay, but now it's bright and early, and Daniel's whole family is awake, and they're sitting there getting ready for breakfast again. Where was he that whole time?
Maybe he was plotting his move. He wasn't going
to go storm into his backyard and just go into a karate stance and duke it out on the patio. That's not a plot. That's not a plan.
Well, obviously he calmed down a little bit because he ended up going and having breakfast.
Oh, jeez. That's because Mrs. LaRusso came out and told them they're both being idiots.
And they were. Yeah, I thought that was...
It just was dumb. Like, they left at nighttime. He's like, I'll fire it up. He's going to go track him down. And then, bam, he shows up like on the patio in the like a creeper. Daniel turns and sees him down the sidewalk. He's like, what the heck? I thought that was in the trailers. I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. He's like hunting and stalking him. That's great.
So anyway, what I liked about all that too was those were all very real emotions that you would expect someone to have. Like, he shows up at his house, and Daniel, not knowing anything about what Louis did, coming in and going, "What are you doing? You actually came to my home? Are you crazy? I'm going to call the police." And then Johnny gets him riled up, and then that's what Amanda LaRusso basically says: "You're both being pathetic. Come in and have some breakfast." And they did. And that whole sequence was so funny, especially at the end when he's like, "You wanna come inside for some breakfast?" And he goes, "I could eat,"
I could eat.
But then we shift to seeing Miguel fret over Sam.
Can I just say, in that whole scene, just one last thought, that Daniel is still being a complete jerk at breakfast?
Well, okay, but you got to understand in context, he does not know exactly what it was that Louis did. He's just seeing this guy pop up to him.
He's being a jerk about everything. He's like, "Oh, sensei," and he's like, "Oh, you got your karate dojo." He's just like mocking everything about it.
Okay, Cobra Kai tried to kill him. Like, what do you?
Oh, come on. Trying to kill who?
Terry Silver and John Kreese and Mike Barnes were going to beat the crap out of him if Mr. Miyagi didn't come and save the day. And Johnny...
And what was the very last thing that Johnny said to Daniel all those years ago? "You're all right, LaRusso," and shook his hand or whatever. Daniel doesn't know how to let go of a grudge. Daniel just has all this arrogance that he has this satisfaction that he's accomplished so much, and his high school bullies are so pathetic in the real world, and he's like, "Look at how great I am." And he's the one that has no mercy for Johnny.
That was not it at all. If you recall, I can't believe we have to go through this again, but if you recall, at the beginning, Daniel was all about being friends with Johnny. It wasn't until Johnny opened up the Cobra Kai. He fixed his car for free, and then he opened up the Cobra Kai dojo, and that's where the problems began. So yeah.
Because Daniel has a grudge against Cobra Kai. It had nothing to do with Johnny until later.
Right. So he's not being a jerk. This whole way of thinking is a complete...
He's being a jerk about a dojo, about a franchise that has nothing to do with Terry Silver anymore and has nothing to do with John Kreese. This is Johnny. He's like, "Oh, Johnny, I'm going to fix your car. Oh, but you're going to shop at Walmart? I don't like Walmart, so you're now a jerk. Walmart tried to beat me up as a kid, so you're a jerk now, and I hate you."
It's not just Walmart. We're talking about his his sensei, Mr. Miyagi, started karate in this universe. And this is a perverted version of karate that perverts everything that Mr. Miyagi taught.
But Johnny's okay with every other dojo.
So, and I'm sure that Daniel is too. Daniel's never grudged with any of the other ones. It's that Cobra Kai is so bad for everybody, and you're seeing it through the students. It is bad. You learn in episode 10, it is bad. Look at what happens to Miguel. Look at what happens to Aisha, although she kind of makes a little bit of a face turn, good guy turn in episode 10. But look at Hawk. Look at Hawk, for crying out loud. The man's insane. So anyway,
I'm just saying, I don't buy it. I think Johnny was trying his best, and especially his speech at the committee, and then Daniel was still there, and Daniel won't listen to a thing anyone says. There's no redeeming value in anything about Cobra Kai, no matter what it's doing for his students, because Daniel has it in his pompous head that he knows everything and that there's nothing good about Cobra Kai, period, the end. And now he's like, I'm going to build an army of Miyagi dojo. We need to have this army of fighters to beat so that they don't have dojos all over the valley. It's a freaking vendetta against a corporation. It's ridiculous.
No, understand. At the end of part 3, that was Terry Silver's plan. Terry Silver's plan.
Yeah, and that was Terry Silver. This is now Johnny's business. This is now what Johnny's trying to do. Just because he could call it Johnny's kicking your butt karate. But Daniel was like, nope, not Cobra Kai. That's the only reason he has against it.
But Daniel doesn't know that. And you don't know that. You don't know that Terry Silver and John Kreese are not involved.
Oh, please. Terry Silver is not funding Johnny's dojo right now. That's ridiculous. That's way horrible speculation.
How do you know that? You don't know that.
Well, even if he was, Daniel definitely doesn't know. So why is he, ripping down this entrepreneurship spirit that Johnny has, just because what if you have a secret silent partner named Terry Silver? I'm shutting you down. You're telling me that he'd have more mercy if Johnny, out of his own funds, created a dojo called Johnny's Karate, and Daniel would be like, oh, I guess that's cool.
I don't think he would have a problem with it at all.
Oh, give me a break. He has a vendetta against Johnny. He even described all this high school crap when he was talking to the board.
You are so wrong. But
okay. Well, anyone watching, put in the comments who's right and who's wrong here, or what your thoughts are, because we're going to move on with the video. But I am not at all satisfied that Johnny is in any way in the right, that he's not just a complete, unforgiving, non-merciful jerk in this whole series. But go ahead. Go on with your discussion.
You mean Daniel. You said Johnny.
Daniel, sorry. Johnny is just trying his best to make a living and do some good.
Okay.
What a good guy he is.
Yeah. So anyway.
Miguel in high school. That's where we were.
Yeah. So, Miguel. So I kept thinking when Miguel was fretting over Sam and he was having all these problems, and he's not getting a hold of her and she's not returning his calls. I got the sense of, I'm wondering if this is what Johnny felt like in between the whole thing with Daniel. They break up and there's a few weeks. I wonder if Johnny was doing the same thing, because like I said in the last episode, this is the episode where Miguel kind of turns into the Johnny we see in The Karate Kid. And I speculated as to whether Johnny turned into the character that you see in The Karate Kid at the beach in the Karate Kid. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How come you're so much more forgiving of Johnny in the first Karate Kid instead of Johnny in this new story?
No, I'm not. No, it's not that I'm not forgiving of Johnny.
You justify everything based on his little sad story he told Miguel. And you're like, oh, see, Johnny was just he was just a good kid and he had some rough times, but Daniel was the jerk. And now in the future, I'm like, Johnny's a good guy. He's just having a rough time because Daniel's a jerk, and I'm the jerk for that.
No. I don't have a problem with Johnny at all. And I don't have a problem with Daniel because they're coming from their perspectives. Daniel has a different perspective, even more different than Johnny, because Johnny was not around in part 2 or part 3. And in part 3, Daniel has this entire different perspective, because look at all of the stuff that Cobra Kai has done to him. And also, he's not really mad at Johnny. He's worried about the Cobra Kai affecting the kids in the area. And you can see that it is affecting them for the worse, because Cobra Kai is okay until it goes too far. And that's what I see in this episode. Particularly, you can kind of see some of that being foreshadowed, I think, when the kids are at the liquor store and they're trying to get alcohol for the party, and Hawk is able to pass his driver's license over, his fake ID. By the way, did you notice the name on the fake ID? It's Walter.
It was what?
Walter Hawkman.
Yeah,
I love that. So anyway, yeah. So, but as soon as he was able to pass for the beer, then he's like, and give us those 8 bottles of vodka, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not. It's not good enough to just get what they want. They have to go overboard, and that's kind of the way Cobra Kai is to a certain point. It's helpful for you, although I'm not saying that getting a fake ID and getting booze underage is helpful for you. But the symbol is it's good for you, and then until you take it too far, and that's where it went. They took it too
We'll
far.
talk about that in the next episode where we talk about No Mercy. But the other thing I just thought about when you just said that was that this is an interesting comparison between how Miguel and his friends are acting at the store, the convenience store, versus how what's his name, the bullies in the beginning in the first episode, that they were going in to try and get beer or whatever it was. They were, what was it? Were they trying to get cigarettes or something? But they were going in.
They were trying to get alcohol.
Yeah. So I mean, they're both kind of delinquent activity for high school kids, and now they're doing what the other bullies were trying to do earlier. Yeah. And I thought that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's what I mean when you hear about this, like when Daniel and Johnny are at the bar. It's interesting when Johnny's talking about his home life. I think he was at the bar, or maybe it was when they're at the South Seas Apartments, and he said, "Yeah, it had its moments, but then you come home and you get bullied every night." And it's really interesting how Cobra Kai would give them confidence and give them the opportunity to face the bullies, but then they ultimately become the bullies. And you're kind of seeing that in that transition there. They're the ones now going and trying to get the alcohol, just like the bullies who beat up Miguel, right? Now,
but Daniel in that same conversation made the point that that it's about your masters, and he said, it's interesting that both you and I, Johnny, both got father figures who were karate masters, and he said, yeah, but yours didn't try and strangle you to death after you got second place or whatever. And Daniel's like, well, that's true. And now you're seeing the results of the students. I think this is where that formula breaks. We're thinking this whole time that Daniel and Johnny just are developed into the way their masters are. Miyagi even said there's no bad students, only bad teachers. And now we're watching Hawk and Aisha and Miguel, who are now following Johnny, and then they're all forking in different directions, versus Robbie that's been converted into being a good, honorable fighter based on the Miyagi style. So I don't know if they're necessarily following the exact formula, because the theory that Daniel has about Cobra Kai is kind of going all over the place. We'll talk about that in the next episode, though.
Yeah. So this is also, I love the back and forth. So when they're at the dinner table, and both Daniel and Johnny are just acting like little kids, going back and forth, like, well, you torched my car, oh well, you drew a wang on my face, stuff like that. It just seems so silly. But I loved the back and forth between Johnny and Anthony. It was so funny. I'm going to tell my dad. Good. I want you
he's
to.
He's like, my dad always beat you up. He's like, I want to beat your dad up or whatever. He's like, one time he said it was good. I want him to know.
Yeah. It was so funny. I love that. And I also love when they're talking and then all of a sudden they go back to Johnny and he's just shaking the salt like so. It's so funny because he's so intense. Oh man.
Johnny's such a fun, colorful character. I just love it.
Yeah. And I love who's really growing on me as one of my favorite characters is Hawk. He's just so crazy in this episode. Like, they're talking about that Yasmin girl, and he's like, He's like, why don't we take her to my tattoo artist and we'll have him tattoo something on her face.
Yeah.
His friends all, slow down, Hawk. Or like,
he's like, I heard it, I didn't like it. I heard how you said it, I didn't like it, or something like that.
But then also like in episode 10 or the where they're announcing him at the semifinals and they're like, Hawk, just Hawk, and then the guy's all, it's Maskowitz. It's Eli Maskowitz.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
He's got his whole lifestyle change, but
yeah. So,
okay, well, before we talk about all the beach stuff with all the friends, let's just go through, it was spread throughout the episode, but let's talk about the Daniel and Johnny situation. Before they got to the car, hesitantly, based on his wife's prodding, Daniel decided to go get him a replacement car for the one that Cousin Louie destroyed in Daniel's name. And it was a funny thing where he's looking through, he's like, I thought you sell Porsches, and he's like, yeah, you wish. And they're looking at all the used cars. I didn't catch the first time, but when he wanted to test drive, Daniel rolled off the people that could do it, and he's like, no, not Louis. He's not allowed to step foot on here. And who else is available? What about Robbie? He's like, it's Robbie's day off. I didn't catch that the first time. I think it would have been crazy if he summoned Robbie to come take Johnny on the test drive, because that would have opened up the whole can of worms right there before they had their bonding trip. Right. And I didn't notice they even said that. But yeah, if Robbie happened to have been available that day, that would have changed the entire story, I think. That would have just had that whole incident at the dojo later when he pushed Daniel, and then Daniel turned and slammed the door on Robbie and told him to go away. I think that would have played out completely different if Robbie happened to be there. I didn't notice that the first time I watched it.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing that was interesting about that is when they go there, the first thing that Daniel says is choose. And Mr. Miyagi did that to Daniel, if you remember.
Oh, you and your Easter eggs, you're so cute.
Well, thank you. I know I am quite attractive.
No, that's a good, you caught that. I didn't catch that.
So, but the inflection was different, right? He's not in the same frame of mind. He's giving him a car, but
it's not like it's a gift.
Yeah, choose. Like, I'm not happy about it, but choose.
It's mostly like I need to get off the lot. Like, hurry up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, but that was, I love that that scene while they're in the car driving and they're listening to Speedwagon. Here's another Easter egg that's funny. He keeps telling him, we need to get back, we need to be back, and he goes, slow down, Danielle, right? And
yeah.
But the thing is that's what Dutch says when they go to fight him, you mess with him in the locker room before the tournament. He goes, well, isn't our little pal Danielle, right?
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
So that was kind of funny too. But I love that they kind of go down that memory lane thing. They start with the Speedwagon, where he says, oh, you like Speedwagon? Well, what kind of man doesn't, right? And they start singing the song together, and then they go to the South Seas Apartments. I love that whole scene.
Before you move off of that point, can I just say that those were two lines he said at the car lot. He says, oh, you know about cars? He says, what kind of man doesn't? And then later on they were talking about the band. Can I just say that I didn't know anything about cars or that band, so I'm not a man.
I guess not in the Karate Kid universe. And I doubt Jaden Smith knows anything about cars or Speedwagon. But
anyway, I'm not disputing that.
But I like that scene at the South Seas Apartments for a couple reasons. One, I love how Johnny gets out and says, hey, remember I kicked the crap out of you right over there, right outside. And then I love when
how'd that turn out for you? Yeah.
Yeah. But then I like when they're over there and they're talking about moms, and he says, my mom just wanted a better life for me. And then he envisions his mom and him walking up to the apartment, and Daniel realizes, it seems like maybe for the first time, or maybe not, kind of realizes how even though he didn't want to move here and he was unhappy with moving here, it truly was like the best thing for him, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. That whole scene there, going back, was pretty awesome.
And that's where he revealed where he said to Johnny, he's like, yeah, you had everything handed to you. He's like, because you had your rich dad. He's like, I didn't have a rich dad. I had a rich stepdad. And then he reflected on how it wasn't at all the situation going on at home that Daniel that he imagined. And he's like, I didn't know that. And that's what really triggered is reconsidering how he feels about Johnny, which is very short-lived, as is every compassionate emotion that Daniel feels in this series. But let's go on.
Well, the other thing also is the more that we go through these things and we see them, the more that Mr. Miyagi is saying that things are not always what they seem, creeping up. Daniel has a completely different idea of what Johnny was, and really we all did in Karate Kid 1. In the first Karate Kid movie, we think that Johnny's just a spoiled rich kid, and turns out he's not. He's got his own problems. So anyway, also Miguel. So we go from there and we see that Miguel is still moving down that misunderstanding path. Not getting the phone call returns, things of that nature. She's busted now, so she can't answer his calls, which just infuriates him more. And I'm sure that's got to be, text messages and phone calls. I'm sure for kids these days, that's got to be frustrating. I remember when I was dating, before, text messaging was really rampant. I got married in 2004, so text messaging was just on the cusp of a thing. Just not getting a return call was annoying. I could imagine not getting return texts and all that, how that would really infuriate people.
But his lack of trust started earlier. It was in high school, that in the beginning scene where they came out of the test, the SAT practice test or whatever, and he was like, "So what'd you do last night?" She's like, "Family dinner." He's like, "Oh, that's nice." But she came up and gave him this sweet little kiss in front of everyone in the high school. She's totally embracing and proud of her being his girlfriend. And he still doesn't trust her, and he's doubting everything, and he reminds me of Daniel in the first movie with Allie. Right. She doesn't reflect everything that Daniel's expecting. He doesn't know if he's getting all the return he feels like he deserves. And he starts being a jerk about it, just like Daniel was. Miguel did. And it's like, neither of these guys at that point deserve the affection that these girls are giving them, especially Daniel in the first movie. I think Allie gave him way too many chances because he was just being an idiot.
Man, your hatred of Daniel is just...
Tell me it's not true. You've seen The Karate Kid more times than I have. Tell me that he isn't just a whiny little butt about the entire thing, and Allie's just like, "No, I still like you. I still like you. Don't worry about them. I still like you. Oh, you were a jerk to me, but I still like you. Oh, you ran off at the thing, and you're a jerk, and even though I'm going out with you while your mom and you're pushing the car down the street in front of my parents, but I still like you, and you're still going to be a jerk to me."
Well, this is all about his insecurities. I mean, that's not him being a jerk. He's just insecure, and it's true. He was not. I mean, obviously, he admits he's a jerk in the first movie. I mean, then he blows his top in the second movie when she dumps him for some mature college guy. Come on, Dan, you're an idiot. Well, regardless. So, and another line that I love from the movie, from this episode, is when they're in the liquor store, and Hawk goes up there, and they're like, "I still need to see IDs." Oh, come on, that's my friend's kid over there.
That's my kid. Yeah.
Guy over there.
He's like, "I'm flattered." Oh, you really need to see it?
Yeah. So then from there we go to the scene at the bar, and that, like I said, is my favorite scene of the whole series, where they're just sitting there having a drink, and they're talking about Allie, and I love their reactions talking about Allie. We learn where she's been, where she came from, or where she went after the episodes.
Johnny's like, "Are you still in touch with her?" He's like, "No, I haven't heard from her in decades." And he's like, "Well, I just seen her from Facebook." He's like, "What's a Facebook?"
And I loved when they looked at the picture of her husband, and look at that stupid face. Oh man.
Yeah, that guy's a douche or something.
Yeah. So that was my favorite part of the whole series, was that learning where Allie went. You can see that both of them are still kind of hung up on her.
Yeah,
you can tell that, and so that should be interesting. And we're going to kind of talk about where we think this should go. And obviously, they've really set up an opportunity for Allie to return. She's a doctor.
Which I am more excited about that than any of the other karate guys coming back into the show. I'm really excited if they bring Allie back.
Right, and
to get some closure with these characters.
Right. And, it's interesting that they said, he said he hasn't seen her in years, because you would think, and, you don't know what happened to her parents, but he lives in Encino. If her parents are still there, she has to come back and visit every once in a while. If she's as amazing as they make her sound, I mean, she's a doctor now and all that. How is she not coming back?
Well, and Daniel does go to the same club that they were, though.
Right. So anyway, they've really set that up well, and they're talking about their mentors. And this is where it gets kind of confusing. In episode 10, you see John Kreese return. But in this episode, it seems like Johnny's got some baggage, obviously, from Kreese trying to kill him, which obviously he should, right?
Well, that's my thing, and his whole expression when he sees John Kreese at the end of the 10th episode, it wasn't like it was surprise, but it was also traumatic for him. Like he was gonna bring back. I think he was seeing fear and dread for the influence that John Kreese had on him as a kid, that he doesn't want to rediscover that, especially where he just won the tournament and he did it, and it was won by cheating the way that Kreese wanted him to do when he was fighting. And then he sees Kreese, and I think that was reconnecting with all those horrified emotions that you saw in the last fight when he was looking at Kreese saying, "Yes, sensei," or he says, "Do you have a problem with that?" "No, sensei." Like all that horror of realizing who Kreese was. I think that was kind of the end of their association right there that night. It's not like he would have gone back to the dojo. And so now here he is coming back, and he's like, "Oh no!" Like I think he's scared about what influence he still has over him.
Sure, it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I was kind of confused at that, because as I thought about it more, I thought to myself, man, did he know the whole time that Kreese was still alive? Did he not? Did he ever contact him before the tournament? You just don't know. We'll find out in the next season, I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, sure we will. So we learned that Allie's in Colorado. We learned that she's a doctor. She's married to an oncologist, which is a cancer doctor. So this is kind of also the scene on the beach with the kids, with the Cobra Kai throwing the party on the beach. This is where I feel the transition from strike hard turns into kind of a no mercy situation. Now it officially goes that way in episode 10 at the beginning with the pep talk, but I think it's starting to transition that way in this episode.
It does, because what's her name, Aisha or whatever, Miss Robinson, she says it to the popular girl when she pulls up her thong, and she says, "No mercy, B," and then she kicks her or pushes her. Right. And it tipped over the edge right there.
Right. And that's what I got the sense as well. That plus also the Robbie versus Miguel standoff, which was similar to the Johnny and Daniel standoff, except they didn't actually fight. I mean,
one exception to that. Allie in the first Karate Kid did not invite Johnny into the scene to be affected by her interest in Daniel. Freaking Sam, I love Sam's character, but what kind of an idiot brings the guy that had been hanging out, that she obviously should know that he's showing interest, especially when he breaks her out and he's like, "Whoa, so what are we going to go do?" And good for her for saying, "Oh, my boyfriend must be dying to know what's going on because I've responded to him all day." He says, "Let's go to party." Wrong. Sam should have dropped him off and then gone to the beach. That was a horrible move on her part, just like some things Allie did when wearing or taking Daniel to the golf and stuff and things. I guess girls in this franchise are not very, very sensitive sometimes. They give a lot of chances for the guys they like, but they also do some pretty crappy moves. But yeah, she takes Robbie to the beach and doesn't even worry about appearances when she's like holding his hand for support as she goes down the hill. Are you kidding? She's freaking a karate student. She's like, she's athletic. She can walk down the hill without needing that dainty little assistance from him. That was dumb on her part. And then, yeah, she gets mad at Miguel for coming up and responding the way he did. I don't blame Miguel at all.
Right. Well, yeah.
But I was just saying, Allie didn't bring Johnny into the scene at all.
So again, you're right. I agree. That's a difference. But again, we got to think about perspectives here, and the perspective for Sam is she doesn't know that Miguel saw Robbie at the dinner. she doesn't know any of that. And of course, yes,
it doesn't matter.
Totally naive. I'm sure I would be unhappy if my girlfriend showed up with another guy who I didn't know or I saw.
Holding hands, you hadn't heard from her all day, and there she is walking down the beach at your own party.
But also, Miguel is drunk, so he's in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that was the bigger trigger, which is, this is the other thing. If that was what was making Sam mad, she's like, have you been drinking? And then he like knocked her down. That's what should have upset her. But then why does she continue to play it off the whole rest of the show that she just hates him and she's just so mad at him? But Robbie's okay.
Well, I think that he was just acting. I mean, he's been acting for her, been acting really crazy. And also, she has influence from her dad. Her dad has been telling her that these Cobra Kai guys are all the same. And when he's acting like that on the beach, surely she's heard the story about Johnny and Daniel on the beach and Johnny beating him up and all that stuff. It sounds like everybody else has already heard the story about the hill. So, I mean, I'm sure that
I'm sure that story was exaggerated, just like the hill, which was also a cliff in Daniel's version. So I think that's possible.
So I think that she's probably also seeing the similarities between the way that he's acting and the way she perceived Johnny acting, according to her dad in the movie. So there's probably a lot of triggers there. But again, I love how all of this stuff is happening due to misunderstandings. People who would normally be probably friends are not friends, and people who, because of misunderstandings and the way things are interpreted, people get screwed up. And also, in this, Robbie's going to have some tension too, because Robbie recognizes Miguel when he comes there, because he recognized him from when Johnny was giving him the gi. So he knows what he's doing as well. He knows.
And I didn't catch that the first time. He said, wait, this is your boyfriend? Like, he recognized that that's who he was. And so, yeah, he has a fight to do. Yeah. I didn't catch that the first time too, but the second time I did.
Right.
That was kind of interesting.
Yeah. And I also loved the little conversation that that Hawk had with his friend. I keep forgetting the friend's name, but where the friend is like, I can't believe this. You get a back tattoo, you get a mohawk, and suddenly you're like the coolest kid in school, and he's making out with one of the popular girls. Mm-hmm. And Hawk says, it's not just the karate lessons, it's not just the mohawk, it's the confidence and just the way of life, the way of being. And that's interesting because that's the same thing that Mr. Miyagi was trying to teach Daniel. It's the balance is not just about karate, it's a way of life. Everything in your life has to have balance. And so
it says it's a way of life. You just got to feel the energy and just live in the moment. That's what he says.
Right.
And that's what the other guy tries to do. And he goes and has that awkward conversation with the popular girl. And then she walks away like, you're such an idiot or something. And then he's like, well, that went really well. Or something, or better than I thought, or whatever.
The thing that's interesting about that too is I think that he's having a little bit of a story arc here, because in episode 10, he goes, I'm going to give this Cobra Kai thing another try. Because remember, he's a guy who did not have the confidence to even talk to a girl. And the fact that he just talked to the most popular girl in the school, that's a big leap for him, even though it didn't go. We look at it and say, well, that didn't go well at all. To him, he had the confidence to even go and talk to her. That's pretty impressive, right? Yeah.
Or what he said to Miguel in the first place was like, if I don't say anything, then it's a 0-0 score or whatever. But if I go and I'm a failure, then I lose. At least now I know where I stand. I'm what does he say? Like, I'm okay with my odds or something like that.
Right. So, but anyhow, so going from the beach, now we go to the scene where they're coming home, and I love the Rocky 3 reference here as well.
Yeah.
The wanting the fight like they had with Apollo and Rocky. And I got to tell you, I was hoping that they were going to do it. I was like,
yeah, awesome. I was so excited.
Yeah. And then Robbie comes in, and I couldn't help but feel like when Robbie came in, oh no, everything's ruined. You know what I mean? Because I wanted, in that moment in the bar, I wanted Johnny and Daniel to connect. I wanted them to be friends.
Yeah.
Because I thought in the first movie, that was so cool that Johnny came over and said, you're all right, LaRusso, good match, and gave him the thing. I was like, oh, cool, So what happened for the rest of the year? Were they friends? Were they not? What happened? But the interesting thing about that, so Robbie comes in, and I don't know if you noticed this, but so Robbie comes in, and they go, wait a minute, what's going on here? and then Johnny pushes Daniel, and then Robbie gets in his fighting stance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed the picture on the wall behind him, but it's Mr. Miyagi's dad with Sato and Miyagi behind him.
Wow.
So I looked at that and I go, that's really interesting that picture is behind him. I don't know why they picked that picture, if there's some symbolism there, but it's Miyagi and Sato as kids and the dad in front of
Well,
him.
that whole thing with Sato and Miyagi was it was a thing about family pride, but it was a misunderstanding as well.
Right.
It was just a matter of defending your honor versus what you actually believe with your association with someone that was like a brother to you, someone that you love. Miyagi and Sato loved each other. And it was just that betrayal that was felt. That betrayal, that's the connection. The betrayal that he felt, that's what caused Sato to want to fight Miyagi, and Miyagi wasn't willing to do it. Well, here you have this betrayal where Robbie he sees Johnny, and Johnny pushes his sensei, who's been a better father figure than Johnny was. Meanwhile, Johnny is sitting there thinking, like, you stuck up to, I just wrote you a letter because I'm not willing to email and text you or whatever. You're not receiving my phone call, so I'm resorting to writing you a letter. And you step in front of my rival, who I've been running around with all day and trying to bury the hatchet and everything, and who's pushing against everything I'm trying to do for good, and now you're going to defend him. And then Johnny's like storms off. And then rightfully, Daniel kicks him out and slams the door on him. And I, for the record, had no sympathy for Robbie at this point.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I also thought, going back to the symbolism of that, isn't it kind of interesting that we're in 3 generations of 2 fighters, of 2 karate students that have all 3 of them have had issues because of a woman. I mean, really, right? Like Sato and Miyagi were best friends, and then Yukie Miyagi fell in love with Yukie and starts hooking up with Yukie, and then Sato wants to fight him to the death. Daniel comes in, and Johnny loves Ali, and Daniel comes in, he feels betrayed, they have a fight. Now Miguel and Robbie have a twist because of Sam. So I kind of thought maybe there's that connection as well, right? So, but I think
the only one of any of those that had a healthy situation that was like kind of justified was Yukie and Miyagi. And Miyagi took the peaceful way out and abandoned love.
Mm-hmm. That was interesting. So, on a side note, who do you think was in the right between Sato and Miyagi?
Between Sato and Miyagi?
With that.
I don't think you can see it as being a right, because Miyagi even says, when he stood up and gave his speech to the whole village, at one point he even implies that he was wrong for doing that there was a step of betrayal. His abandoning or leaving for America wasn't out of fear, and it wasn't out of I don't want to lose the woman. It was because he didn't want to have to fight his best friend that he loved so much. I don't think the girl had anything to do with it at that point. Once it got to that point, and that's why Miyagi wasn't afraid to come back. His father was more important. Being there for his father as he was dying and summoned him, well, Yuki did, meant more to him than the possible threat and the uncomfortableness of reliving this vendetta that Sato had. Meanwhile, Sato defended his honor, and Miyagi even said in Okinawa, honor is a very, very big deal. I don't think Miyagi ever inferred that he thought that Sato was being erratic. I mean, yeah, he took things too far, and there was a lot of manipulation and bullying that happened, but it wasn't good.
Miyagi actually asked him to forgive him.
Yeah.
So he felt he was somewhat in the wrong, and
he accepted the blame, but he wanted forgiveness. There's a difference between, you know what, forgive me so we don't have to fight, because even though I didn't, it's like when you get in trouble with your wife and you say, I'm sorry, even though don't think I did anything wrong, but whatever, I'm sorry. That's not what Miyagi did. Miyagi recognized that he did something that offended and hurt Sato's honor. And so I can't look at it as one of them were right and wrong. Even though Sato was like the bad guy watching this as a kid, that's not really what it was about.
Yeah, and also interesting enough that Sato seemed to have the same grudge and the same issues with growing out of that fight that Johnny's now having. So, but anyhow, so that's the end of that episode, episode 9. My favorite, I think that's what sets really everything in motion for the All Valley tournament in episode 10. And so,
episode 10 called Mercy, even though there was like no mercy in this episode at all.
oh, and one more thing before we go into that is at the very end, when Daniel gets pushed into the trophy, found it very interesting that the trophy was broken in the same spot that Kreese broke Johnny's. If you remember, Johnny's trophy was broken in half in that same
You are so just a nerd.
Hey,
his trophy was broken on the same joints as the one in the first movie.
Hey, that's an Easter egg. You want to know the Easter eggs?
I want to know the Easter eggs. You're good. I'm just saying that's just okay.
So
okay.
So anyway, episode 10. I like the way that this starts as well. I love the showing all of the trophies and everything. I thought it was funny that they showed all those trophies because, you know, this has a little bit to do with millennials and had enough trophies where literally everyone would get a trophy, it looked like, at the beginning. But I love the sequence where they're all kind of sitting out there and they're waiting for Johnny. And they're like, maybe he killed himself or something like that. And Aisha was like, no, he didn't kill himself. That's too pussy of a move or whatever. Like, I love
it. He can't kill. That's too pussy of a move.
Yeah. But, and I love how the little kid, like, found him and he was totally drunk and peeing on the car and all that. And he was
he's peeing on the LaRusso license plate.
And he's screaming, he's like, we're all going to die, kid. We're all going to die. And then he goes, well, why didn't you say anything? And he's like, well, he always looks, you know, he's always drunk, you know. You think of it? Oh, man.
Well, so he steps in. This was the cool part. I actually wrote this down. He goes in and they're about to go in the tournament. Miguel's already like shadow boxing and everything, just getting ready. And he goes in and he says he's going to give them the final lesson before they go in. He says, he said when they were surprised they showed up, this was powerful of him. He says, I may not always win, but I never back out of a fight. Before he gives them the lesson, he's like, I would never not show up. I think he had the same thought, you know, it's a pussy move to back out or to give up, you know, and you know, committing suicide, that would be throwing in the towel and backing out of a fight of life. So I really like that when he said that. That was kind of cool. But he says, I taught you to strike first and that to be aggressive and not be losers. He said, I taught you to strike hard, to put every ounce of your power behind everything you do. And now the final lesson is no mercy. He says, life isn't fair. He says, when things are going good, everything's going to start falling apart. He says, life shows you no mercy, and so neither do we. Do whatever it takes to stay above, you know, he's talking about staying above water and swimming. You do whatever it takes to keep pressing forward. You got to do whatever it takes to win. And that's the whole mantra of the strike first, strike hard, and no mercy. That's what the Cobra Kai are all about. If you listen to what he just said right there, there is nothing evil or nothing inappropriate or too destructive with those philosophies. It's the interpretation and the application of those things that have gotten these kids into trouble. Even no mercy. I don't think there's, the way he describes it right there is you got to keep pushing forward. Life's not fair, and you got to do whatever you can, put everything you have behind everything, and you'll just suck it up. But do whatever you can to win, and doing whatever you can to win doesn't mean defeating everyone else. You know, Daniel being a successful businessman after everything he was dealing with, especially in the third movie, you know, doing whatever, having no mercy in life, doing everything he could to win in life and do what he could to accomplish his goals and his dreams. That's Cobra Kai. Daniel has lived a life with that principle. So I think it's really the application of what you're doing and how you're treating other people and your desire not to win. And that's one important thing in the gospel is, you know, your success or other people's success doesn't mean that you're a failure. And you accomplishing things and being successful doesn't necessarily, and winning, you can look at it that way, doesn't mean everyone else has to be lower than you or below you or losing compared to you.
So you know what I find interesting is I like everything you said. I think you're right. But I think that the lesson that maybe it's not that no mercy is where things go wrong. Maybe it's goes wrong because they don't have the teaching about balance, right?
That's true.
I mean, maybe that's what it is. Because if you think about it, it goes back when Robbie's in the sitting there in the tournament, and he says, "Remember balance." And he says, "You got to take all the bad stuff and all the good stuff and kind of bring them together." Well, Miguel and Hawk and Miss Aisha Robinson, they haven't had that lesson about the balance, so they're all focusing on the bad. You know, Aisha is focusing on the fact that she was bullied by Yasmin, and Miguel is focusing on this crappy stuff that's going on with Sam. And so when they hear that lesson, they're in and even when Johnny's giving the lesson, he's in a negative mood because everything's kind of crashed down on him with Robbie. So all of that, I think that I kind of had an epiphany while you were talking about that.
And it wasn't just the no mercy part too. The application of all of them, because if you remember when Sam's yelling at Miguel in this episode about what happened on the beach, and she's like, we were gonna go fight, and you didn't hear my explanation. He says, you gotta strike first. And she's like, strike first? Who are you? And that's where he's depicting the Cobra Kai being as dark and evil and wrong as Daniel has been telling her. But just that we were so proud of Miguel for striking first and having confidence and asking her on a date and everything. But then on the beach, it turns into a different application. He punches the guy, or he's ready to punch the guy, knocks her down before he took a second to get all the information or to hear her side of it. So I think, yeah, it's application.
Also, mind you, he didn't get mad about the part about strike first. He says you have to strike your enemy first. And she's like, your enemy?
Right? Yeah, you're right.
About your enemy, and that didn't make sense. As far as the tournament, I had some thoughts about that. First, I loved the friend when they're like the 50th anniversary, and he's like, 50 years? Am I the only one who's been out of the loop?
I love that kid.
But I kept thinking, if you remember in part 3, Mr. Miyagi was not okay with the tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like them. He didn't want anything to do with them. He was okay with Daniel entering the tournament that one time to earn respect. But after that, he didn't want him defending his championship. He didn't want him doing all the stuff. He didn't want him winning the thing. And yet, somehow, Daniel has continued to be supportive of this tournament when I don't know if Mr. Miyagi would have liked that. So there's a little the continuity of the story there is kind of and maybe not. Maybe it has something to do with Daniel's balance and him going to kind of not having Miyagi there to talk to him about it. But
that's because Miyagi wanted the karate to mean something, and the defending his honor meant something, defending his life meant something, but defending a trophy doesn't mean anything. And that's what the whole third movie was about. I don't know how Miyagi would even feel about John or Daniel being on the committee. Mm-hmm. I mean. He's not applying his karate as a business kind of a thing, as a sponsorship and everything. That's why Daniel's wife was prompting him to go. But I don't know how Miyagi feels about the tournament in general. You're right. It was a plot device in the first movie where it was a safe place that they could prepare for training and have a fair fight to deal with it instead of increase his dojo where the advantage was too much. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he feels about just competition in general for sport. It's an interesting thing. But it's another way of thinking of Daniel just being a total wannabe failure to everything that Miyagi taught him all these years.
So another thing I liked.
Moving on.
Another thing I liked was what the grandmother said when they're sitting there, and the mom's like, "I hope he doesn't get hurt." And the grandmother says, "Anything that happens, he'll learn from it." And that's a true statement, isn't it? I mean, we all have in our lives adversity. We all have things that happen to us that they don't go our way every single time. In fact, most of the time they don't go our way. But I can't think of a single bad thing that's happened to me where I haven't learned a lesson from it, and it made me a stronger, better person in the end. So.
And Miyagi didn't actually say those words, but I think that's what he was trying to get at in the locker room when Daniel was injured in the first fight, in the first movie, where he was saying, like, there's no reason to fight anymore. You proved your point. He's like, what, that I could take a beating? He's like, no, that wasn't all this was about. And he was proud of him for that. And he said he can hold his head up and move on. I think that was some of what he was trying to impart in that moment.
I thought that doing the crane kick in the first fight was a nice touch.
I like that.
I'm glad he didn't use it in the fight with Robbie. I'm glad they did it at the beginning just as kind of like a screw you to Daniel. I thought that was
nice. And it was perfect. And Johnny just kind of like looks at him.
Yeah.
And then Daniel's like,
And I also like the kind of yin and yang again, because if you remember, I can't remember which fight it was, but there was a fight where I don't know if it was Miguel or if it was Aisha, but some of them were blocking, and then you hear, I think Johnny says, enough defense, attack, right? And that's interesting because Daniel tells Robbie in the last fight, let him come to you, right? So that was kind of cool way to do that. So I liked Aisha's kind of story. I'm glad she kind of came back around with Sam. Because you know, they've been best friends for a long time. It's clear in the show that they were really great friends, and Sam screwed that up by kind of ditching her to go with the popular kids and the kids from, you know, well, they're all from Encino, but you get the point. And for her to turn around and kind of forgive Sam finally, I think that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing and they've started to plant the seeds now for Sam to get involved in the fighting, because Aisha tells her, you know, we could sure use more girls out there, right? And it looks like that Sam is no slouch when it comes to karate.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see where that goes.
That little stunt she does at the very end of this episode is pretty. I mean, the stunt double did a good job, but yeah, it'll be. I don't like the thought of her and Robbie being united as the proteges under Daniel against the characters that I like in this story. I like Sam, but Robbie's a tool, and he's a liar and a sneak, and not just about his criminal life, but just everything he's done, sabotaging and trying to manipulate being with Sam, and I just don't like him. I don't like anything about Robbie. Miguel, I've been rooting for this whole time, and I hope he, you know, comes back to the other side of the fence. And then Sam, I think that union between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do will be through Sam and Miguel. And then Johnny and Daniel patching up their differences to fend off against any other villains that they bring into the story. Anyway, go ahead.
So I did not like Robbie at the beginning, but I think you're too hard on him because think about this, and this will show you the difference between Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai. So Cobra Kai turns a good kid into a bad kid, and Miyagi-Do turns a bad kid, for all intents and purposes, into a good kid.
Who's trying to impress a girl. I don't see any other reason for Robbie being in the fight other than...
He's not trying to impress a girl. He doesn't even know Sam until episode 8.
No, at first getting involved in karate was just to get under his dad's skin, but him being in the tournament at the end, unsupported by anyone else, that wasn't like, oh, I want to put my skill to the test, or I want to defend my honor. It was either one, because he wanted to fight Miguel because of the whole thing with his dad, or two, he was trying to get back in league with Daniel or impress Sam. And what other motive does he have to get back with Daniel other than Sam? I like these teachings and I want to become a pacifist karate student. Come on.
Yes, that's exactly it. And 3,
that makes it even more lame.
And 3, the other reason why he goes in there is to show his dad what he's learned, because he's still got.
How special! He's such a fake. He doesn't want to be with his dad. He doesn't like his dad. He doesn't walk off with his dad.
He doesn't walk off with his dad, but he does. He does still have a thing for his dad. He still loves him.
Yeah, and that moment at the end of the fight where he went up and he said, said Robbie, I'm sorry. And he said, it's okay. Like they've had a connection right there where there was a little bit of hatchet under the dirt, right? But he's like, but I'm still gonna go with with Daniel, and he's gonna show me all this other cool stuff because I still want to bury you guys. And now Robbie is taken to the backyard of Miyagi's old house. He's like, here's where we're gonna build our empire to fight against your dad. Your dad that just had that moment. Daniel should have been a little perceptive that maybe there's something healthy between Robbie and his dad fixing something, especially where he had a little moment under the tree where he's trying to make up his own magic teachings of karate and saying, oh, you didn't have a dad. You got to take that suffering from your dad and have that balance. And now his dad's like trying to fix it. He's like, well, no, we got to use that. Otherwise, you're not a good karate student. Daniel's a jerk. Robbie's being misled by a jerk.
Tells him when they're in the locker room that you still got to love your dad. He said, you don't have to necessarily like him, but he's still your dad and you're lucky to have him. He's telling him all those things. I think the reason he leaves with Daniel and doesn't stay with his dad is because he sees what craziness is going on over there with all those students and how bad they've all turned out, and he sees where his life is going. Remember, Daniel tells him, he says, you can see where your future wants to go and you can make it happen. He wants his future to be like Daniel and not like Johnny. He wants to see his life become a student like Daniel and not like the kids that Johnny's training. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the right thing to do.
All right. I'll accept that possible explanation.
Now, I want to tell you my favorite moment of the entire episode, of this episode, is the scene where the kid in the blue gi like gives that long speech about all this stuff. And then
About
he looks at Miguel and goes, kick that pansy in the face.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you know how many face contact there was in this tournament? Everyone got hit in the face.
It just proves you that it wasn't an illegal kick.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, I don't have to be defending that, but yeah, seriously, everyone gets punched or kicked in the face. Like every point in that montage was like that.
So another cool little Easter egg. You want to talk about my nerdness? Check this out. So another reason why Miguel and Hawk are now like Johnny and Dutch. Before Dutch goes into his fight with Miguel, he's bouncing around there and he does the exact same little knuckle give me five move that Johnny and Dutch do before Dutch move into his fight with Daniel. So I thought that was really cool. Now I didn't like. This is where I think they got off the rails with the parody. I didn't like that he had an injury just like Daniel. I didn't like that. There was no need for that. I mean, really, there was no need for that other than to just try to make it exactly like the other Karate Kid.
That both of them happened to end on the bracket to be fighting each other at the very end. He had a wound. He got the wound from another jerk from Cobra Kai, and then he dealt with that injury, and then he went back, and then a stupid joke with the Miyagi healing power, and then called the medic and everything, whatever. The medic would have already been there when they took him off because of the injury, but whatever. Yeah, it was sloppily written just to recreate that entire fight to be, hit for hit, exactly like the original movie. I agree. That annoyed me. It took me out of it. It was so blatant and stupid.
The other two things that I really didn't like was I didn't like the thing where he slapped his hands and then went medic. I thought that was kind of corny and dumb. And then the other thing I really didn't like was Daniel LaRusso's gonna coach. I thought that
like they make a fuss out of it, like they're so, oh my gosh, so exciting.
I thought, I just thought that was so cheesy to make it sound like Daniel LaRusso's gonna fight. It just
I see what you're saying. That's an Easter egg.
It sounded too forced. Where other things they did really well, where it just flowed with the story. Some of the things they did to try to make it like, I just felt like it wasn't necessary, right? Like going back to where they did the training montage where he was having Robbie do all the little tasks, the little chores. They could have just done wax on, wax off and the squeegee thing, and we would have gotten the point. They didn't have to go to the stapler and all the other things. Here, the same thing. They didn't need an injury. They didn't need the Daniel LaRusso's going to coach. That was all just done to make it parody, and I thought it was overdone, and I could have done without it. Now, I'm not saying that I don't love the series just because of this one thing. I just thought it was a little overboard. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Did you notice that one of the other karate fighters' last name was Stone, which was the bully's name in the Sidekicks movie? I'm not going to say that was deliberate, but I think that's interesting because I always felt like that was the real remake of Karate Kid. Alex Stone.
Okay. Well, now going back to what I was saying before, the little speech that Daniel's giving Johnny, I thought was really interesting because everyone's you can see that Robbie and Johnny are kind of having a little bit of introspective at the same time. I love that when Daniel is telling Robbie, he basically tells him, he says, look, your dad is not a bad guy. He's had a bad run, and this is, he was taught by a really bad, sensei. but you don't have to be that. And I thought it was really well done when he says you don't have to be like that, and at the same time, Johnny is looking at a picture of Kreese, and he sees his own reflection in the picture with Kreese, and it's almost like Johnny's saying, "I don't want to be like that." And you can see that in this last fight. You can see that when Hawk kicks him and says, "Hey man, you didn't need to do that," and he's like, "What? Like show no mercy," or whatever he says. And Miguel, he's seeing Miguel has gone crazy too. And it's gone over the rails, and it's just there's no mercy thing. So,
but he says he tells Miguel, we want to win, but we don't want to win cheating, and he makes that point, which is just such a great inversion from the way he was in the first fight, where Kreese was telling him to take him out, and he said no mercy. That realization that Johnny had right at that moment, said, "Is there a problem with that?" He said, "No." And say that came totally to life right here, where he could actually act on those feelings that he had way back then. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do what happened then. I'm not. This was where he forked from being Kreese. He said, that is not who I am. That's not how we're gonna win this. And I've instructed you to do it a certain way. When Miguel did the cheap shot, that broke Johnny's heart. I really feel that way. That I think he was devastated because of what he turned Miguel into unintentionally. And then that's why he went, when he said, "I'm sorry" to Robbie, it was for everything. It was for all their history, for his not being there, for his living a life that was so separating that it caused Robbie to have this criminal life and this delinquent life and dropping out of school and being so separated to cling to another father figure, especially it being Daniel. And then at the same time, I'm sorry for how that just happened, that you lost. He wasn't proud, and he didn't say a good match or anything. It was like, I'm your father and I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted, any of it, and I'm trying to fix it. Just like when he wrote his letter.
Going back to what you're saying about him seeing Miguel, I have to praise the actor who plays Miguel, because there at times when he's going after Robbie's shoulder, the anger on his face is so well done.
Yeah.
Hell, he's really going after him. And so another thing that I loved, I thought was a really nice touch, was after Miguel wins, Robbie gets up, and if you watch, you can see that he goes to the end of the mat and he bows and leaves. I just think the fact that he had such respect for the process just shows that Robbie is
such a good kid.
Yeah. Also, another little Easter egg, you can hear in the background as Johnny's going after after Robbie, Miguel is saying, "Hey, Sensei, we did it all right." Just like Daniel was saying to Miyagi,
yeah,
"We did it." You can hear it in the background as he's running away. The only difference is he's chasing after Robbie and not staying there. So,
yeah.
I also love the fact that Miguel, I feel like Miguel and Johnny both kind of realized that it wasn't right in different ways. Johnny knew it wasn't right because he knew that Miguel had done it the wrong way. He didn't want him to win that way. But Miguel also saw that, Daniel, he got the girl. Allie was there and chased after him when he won. Miguel was looking for Sam, and she wasn't there.
Right? Yeah, which I love. I love that she left.
Yeah.
That she wasn't there. Oh, Robbie's such a great guy. She left because she didn't want anything to do with the whole thing.
So, now I know you didn't like it. I know you didn't like the fact that they went back to Miyagi's home to start the Miyagi-Do karate, but I loved the way they did it. Going back there,
revealing the car underneath the car cover,
and then going out there and going to the backyard. I'm really excited to see where they go with that. And
I was okay with that. I liked that the set was there and that he went there. I just don't like Miyagi or Daniel's motive. Think about this seriously. Do you really think Miyagi would be all about this motive, this agenda to bring down Cobra Kai? Miyagi didn't have that feeling in the first couple movies. He didn't have like, we need to bring this down for the good of these kids.
I think Miyagi felt that way when he saw how bad they were in part 3. Because that's when he started training him. When he saw how bad they were and what they were on. And because he says that in part 3, he says, Cobra Kai is going to be all over this, all over the valley, and you're just going to be a memory. And that's when Miyagi says, now I'll train you, and trains him to defeat the Cobra Kai. So I think that, I don't know, would Miyagi be okay? I don't know if Miyagi would be okay with much of this at all. I don't think watching it, and I didn't get this until I watched it a couple times through episode 10, but I just got the feeling like I didn't know if Miyagi would be okay with all of it, with any of it. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that. So, and then of course the big reveal: John Kreese is still alive, and I loved his little monologue. How the story has just begun, and I just couldn't help but think, man, that was such a great way to end it. Such a huge cliffhanger, such a big deal that Kreese is back, because he's hinted in this the whole time, and you hear the suggestion that he's dead. And I think I said in the earlier episode, my son, when I saw it, I popped big. I got out of my chair like, I can't believe that's John Kreese. And then my son, same thing. He freaked out when John Kreese was back. So I'm excited to see where they go from there on that. Now, I
agree, and I stand by what I said. I think the exciting thing to watch in the next season is Johnny is now going to be torn with reconnecting with who he used to be when he was in league with John Kreese versus who he's trying to become now as a better sensei that knows how to draw a line at no mercy. I think that's going to be the fear that seriously, when he came out, that expression when he saw Kreese was not like, oh, thank goodness someone's here to help, and it wasn't like, oh, my sensei's back. It was like, oh no, like I he is horrified, like I said, about being manipulated again and drawing out those feelings that only Kreese may know how to push those buttons. Maybe he's the only one that has access to that part of Johnny, and Johnny doesn't want to revisit and relive and become that person again. That's what I read in the expression. It wasn't like shocked that you're still alive. That may have been there too, but it was like he's sitting there staring at the victory. And Miguel says, I won this for you, pretty much. I can't remember the exact word, but he says, we won this for you. Or he dedicated it to Sensei. He said, I wouldn't be here without my sensei. This is for you, Sensei Lawrence. And he's sitting there, Johnny's staring at it, and he's not happy. He's drinking again. Remember, he had the whole montage where he's, cleaning up, and he went for the orange juice. Now he's back to drinking beer, just depressed, staring at this trophy in the dark. And he hears the door. He goes and he sees. He's like, Miguel, is that you? Because I think he wants to talk about it. And then it's like, it's Kreese. And now he's like, and Kreese is like, well, I knew you could do it, and I knew you had it in you that you could to win it. And in Kreese's mind, I really think that victory was Kreese's victory, because that's how warped his mind is as far as always winning everything. So, and I think that's where Johnny is like, he's going to be broken in this next season. He's come a long way in this series, and in this season now he's got a whole other aspect thrown into it where he's going to have to fight against becoming who Kreese was.
So I think that's possible, but I also think it was really great the way they did the win and how Daniel said, well, Johnny, you got what you wanted, you won. And I think Johnny's starting to realize that it's not just do anything it takes to win. You got to win the right way, and doing that, it wasn't as satisfying because also he didn't really gain anything back. Robbie's now over with, Robbie is with Daniel, and really Robbie should have been the person that he was training, not Miguel, right? I mean, you see that when he's handing the gi to Miguel, you get the sense that Robbie should have been the one there. And when he goes to Miguel's mom and says, give me another chance, it should have been Robbie that he's talking to, or Robbie's mom that he's talking to, not Miguel's mom. So right. He really doesn't have what he wants. But here's my thought. So I want to get into predictions for season 2. I think you're probably right that he didn't know about Kreese, and I think the first episode is going to have Kreese and Johnny having a little bit of a talk, and I think it'll be interesting to see where Johnny is or where Kreese has been. Maybe we're going to get an answer. I would love it if Johnny says, I don't need you anymore. I don't want you around here. And he goes, well, I still own Cobra Kai. and you're
Yeah.
my stuff, so I'm a part of this, whether you like it or not, right?
Or if he's going to come in and say, you know what, we're going to branch out, and I'm now making more dojos because you've restored the name of Cobra Kai. And Johnny doesn't want that. I mean, yeah, it's a business, but Johnny just wants to do some good. That's why he went back and trained Miguel in the first place, was because he said, I'll be your sensei. I'm going to help you. Now Johnny's going to come back, and now to Kreese, this is just a big business step now, and just to regain his honor.
So we do know that Mike Barnes will be coming back in season 2. We know that. So I've been trying to rack my brain, and I think I understand why he needs to come back. If you remember, in Karate Kid 3, part of Mike Barnes' deal was that he would get 50% of all Cobra Kai dojos opened up in the Valley. So now I don't know if that was contingent on him winning the tournament or not.
Well, it was, because that was the whole negotiation. He was like, you fight as hard as you negotiate? He's like, harder. And he's like, I like that. And that was the whole thing, was he bought himself a champion. That's what he said. You bought yourself a champion.
Yeah, so I think that would be a good way to get him back in, and he's a 50% owner of Cobra Kai. He's involved. And what I would love to see in the next season is for Johnny to leave, realizing the monsters he created, and joining with Daniel and Robbie. I would like to see that. I also think, and I hate to hear this, but I think they've left some room, and I would not be surprised if Hilary Swank's character comes in to help with the Miyagi-Do stuff. I do not like that. I don't like that episode at all. I don't like that. I don't like The Next Karate Kid. I think it's a terribly made movie. But if it was to happen, I wouldn't be completely opposed to it if done right. So now, if James,
if Johnny steps over and helps Daniel against Cobra Kai, if it turns back into Kreese and Barnes and Silver, then yeah, Daniel's a little overwhelmed because he doesn't have Miyagi, and Daniel kind of sucks compared to Miyagi. So Johnny joining forces over there, if they can resolve some of their issues, which started in this series, that would be fine. But if not, Daniel's a little alone on the limb. Even if Sam and Robbie are going to start taking their karate seriously again and help him with that, it's still Daniel. And I think Hilary Swank coming in and helping that restoration of Miyagi karate would be fine. I don't think they'd ruin. I don't think they'd regurgitate too much of The Next Karate Kid on it. They would just, here's a character. We know you guys didn't like her, but she is part of the canon, and she did have some good. I'm not saying she does, but I'm sure they could think of why they would want to do it, just because they need some balance. And also, you got to think about this. She's also a girl, and that's diversity. You can't pass up a chance to have a woman in a story like this now.
And I think it would be, Aisha says it would be nice to have more girls involved in this. It would be a nice way, because I could see there being a rift in the Cobra Kai, and Johnny, I think it would be really cool to have Johnny and Daniel on the same side and them fighting on how they're supposed to train these kids, right?
That would be cool. Yeah.
That would be good. And then I could also see Aisha Robinson coming over with them if Johnny were to leave, and joining with Sam, especially if there was a girl trainer like Hilary Swank. I don't think she needs to be involved in the series for a long time, but having her in a couple of episodes to help train would be kind of, I could see how that would be cool, even though I don't like that episode or that movie at all. Now, if
you'd have Daniel then surrounded by women, because there'd be Daniel and Hilary Swank and Sam and Robbie's kind of a girl, and then you have Aisha over there. It makes sense.
And then if they put Jaden Smith over there, he'd still be surrounded.
Yeah, Jaden Smith's a little more like a girl now than he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So no.
So they need Johnny over there. They put a little testosterone in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be. So now I'm always afraid. I'm kind of afraid for what comes next. And the reason I say that is it's clear to me on everything I've read and based on this season that the creators have been thinking about this for a really long time. And they've done it perfectly. But did they really think farther along, right? Did they really think, because you think about it, they planned this as a movie initially. That's what they were thinking about. And they got it into 10 episodes. are they going to have that same attention to detail, and is the story going to be as congruent in the second season and beyond?
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not either, but it's just something to worry about. Now, I'm a bit of a worrywart, and they've done nothing to show me that they couldn't do a second season. In fact, based on what they've done, I'm going to trust that they can. But we'll just see where it goes. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Let me ask you this. How do you feel about Chosen from Karate Kid 2 coming back into the picture?
I think that would be awesome. I think that it would be cool to find out where his character went after the fact. I thought initially it would be great if Sato came back to help train.
Oh, that would be cool.
But the actor,
because he knows the pure style, and he was a lot more collected on it. Yeah.
But Sato, the actor, is dead, so it would be hard to bring him back unless they wanted to do like a different person. Which could
be easier to replace Sato than it would be to replace Miyagi, though. So I wouldn't be horrified or upset or offended if they did bring back Sato for that. That would be kind of cool. But what would Sato, who's running Okinawa pretty much, travel all the way back to California to deal with this little rivalry? That'd be kind of dumb.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he obviously has a affinity for Daniel based on what happened in the second movie, and we know that Daniel's gone back to Okinawa a number of times.
Yeah. What if Daniel took his students on a little trip to Okinawa to go learn from where it all began, and then that's where you could have Chosen in there for a couple episodes. That'd be kind of fun.
I don't know. Would you let your kids go with some karate sensei to Okinawa?
Well, what kids? It's Robbie, who has no parents really guarding him anyway or taking care of him. And then you have Sam, who's his daughter, who's been to Okinawa, I'm sure. Like, it's not like we're talking about a whole studio. We're talking about those two kids. Oh, I don't think it'd be a big deal for him to take them, just like Daniel went with Miyagi.
Going back to your original question, I would like to see Chosen come back. If done right, I don't want gratuitous character returns just because. I would also love to see some of the original Cobra Kai to come back. I would.
Like who, for example?
Of course, Dutch. I'd love Dutch to come back, but I would like to see Tommy come back. I'd like to see them all. I'd like to see all four of the major characters come back, because I think that Bobby would be anti-Cobra Kai based on the way that he was treated. I think Tommy would probably be anti as well, but Dutch, I don't know, because Tommy was the one at the beginning of part 2 where he's like, come on, Sensei, let go of him. He's sorry. He really is. Let him go. Right.
Yeah.
Dutch was kind of in the background, although it's not really Dutch. It's not really, I think his name's Steve McQueen. It's not really him in the background, but still it's supposed to be Dutch there. And then Bobby's the one who gets punched. And Bobby's the one who has to do the kick and doesn't like being disqualified.
Well, there's also the thought that if John Kreese and Johnny are going to end up making it more dojos, they're going to need more senseis. And what better group to take over some of that management than the former students who know the stuff? They were black belts, and they all were converts to it.
I would absolutely love to see Tommy come back and him have brain damage. I think that would be hilarious. So, but anyway, there's a lot of different ways they could go with it. I'm really excited about them coming back with a season 2 and seeing where it goes. They've definitely, and of course, the other thing that I predict is sometime in season 2, Allie's going to come back, and it's going to cause a rift. It's going to cause some problems, and we're going to hear her side of the story of everything. And that's
what I'm most excited. That's what I want more than anything else, is Allie to come back just to hear her side of it.
And I want Allie also. I would be curious to see what would happen if Allie and Amanda LaRusso got in the same room, and see what happens there.
Allie's a sweetheart. Allie's the best character in the Karate Kid series.
What do you think about? That's not true. But what do you think about Johnny and Miguel's mom? You think that happens in season 2?
I think they're going to have stronger friendships and stuff. I don't think this is like what it reminded me of is in the Mighty Ducks with Emilio Estevez and Charlie's mom. where there's like, oh, they had chemistry, and then I think they finally kissed at the very end, but like it was like nothing. They just kind of, didn't want to run with that plot point in the next movie. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they're going to have a little more just slowly developing, even if it's not romantic, just still slowly developing friendship. Because Johnny's still on his own. But I think in the long run, Johnny, I don't know, he may need to reconnect with his wife. There's obviously some disappointment and regret there where he was out in the episode about where he was, trying to clean up and everything. He was looking at a picture of him and his wife. And I know that she's all off the deep end and like messing around with guys and everything, and Johnny's kind of frustrated. Maybe that's part of why he's so annoyed with her and angry about her not taking care of Robbie, is because he misses that. Maybe that's what happened in their relationship, was she wasn't satisfied with him or wanted to move on. It's obvious that she's expressed that she's trying to find someone that can take care of her and Miguel. Johnny was kind of a loser. He was just running his odd jobs and he wasn't successful. He was like in this dumpy apartment. Maybe that's just where he wasn't good enough for her. And so she's moved on trying to find someone that is. And now he's kind of coming out as being successful and doing something he loves and doing good for these kids. And now he's earning Robbie's respect a little bit. Maybe that's what the problem is.
I would not like her and Johnny to end up together. I don't like her character at all. I don't think she's a different type of character. She's meant there to show that Robbie really doesn't have anything. And also, I feel like Johnny and her probably got together in Johnny's bad phase. So Johnny is now clearly a changed person and is progressing for the better. And
I agree. I don't want them to reconnect in a reconciled relationship. I would like to see them at least, bury the hatchet for what's best for Robbie. I would like to see her become and then them working together instead of like, well, call his mom, or call her, I can't get a hold of her. Like, well, good luck with that. The way the first couple episodes went. For them to work together for a more stable and healthy environment for Robbie, because Robbie can't just move in with the LaRussos. That'll annoy me even more about it. Robbie needs to get his family, his house back in order. And Johnny at the same time can develop a friendship and someday relationship with Miguel's mom. I think that's totally appropriate.
Yeah, I would
like that.
That would be interesting, and it would be interesting to see where Allie fits into all of this, and if her husband comes back with her, and if he's involved, because that would be funny too. They showed a picture of him, so you got to think that he's going to be
some actor.
They wouldn't just show a picture of the guy unless he's going to be involved. I mean, they wouldn't show a picture of him just so and show you the picture just so they could be like, look at that dumb face,
I'd be okay with that being like a season 3 thing. I don't need Allie to come back next season necessarily. I think there's kind of too much going on with Kreese being back. I think it just congested too much putting Allie back in right now. And Mike Barnes, because we already have Kreese and now we're going to have Barnes back for season 2. I don't need Allie back yet. Let's hold off on that to have somewhere to go after this. Yeah. I think you made the comment, the creators have said that they have a lot of ideas on how they can go a long ways with it and do it for a long time.
Well, that's exciting. I'm all for it. The way they did this season, if they could do more seasons like this, I would be happy. I just don't see how you could get any better than what they did. Really, you just got to take your hats off and celebrate it, because it's, in my mind, it is the best nostalgia series ever done. Yeah. And no one wanted to see, everyone had such a bad taste in their mouth about it, looking forward to it. Not just us. Other people were like, I don't know what they're gonna do. And then once it hit on YouTube Red and it was launched, everyone loved it and everyone was talking about it. And it took us a while to get all of our discussions out, but it had a huge following and all this hype, all these media releases that Ralph Macchio has been doing, his Abigail's been doing. Everyone's just totally excited and stoked about it. And Martin Cove, he's had a lot of press about it too, and he loved the series. Everyone's just been really excited about it. Well, in reference to us taking a long time to get getting all of our episodes out, I don't know of any other YouTube channel that has done hour-long episodes talking about them as in-depth as we have. And if they have, I would love to hear them, because I'd love to hear what other people think. Because I think I can't think of anything else that I if I didn't hit every single Easter egg on this, I would be surprised because I think I might have even stretched on a couple of them. So
you're like looking for some, just like Daniel walking behind Robbie in the shop trying to find teaching moments. You're like exaggerating and trying to create them in your mind.
So anyway, well, I've really enjoyed going through this and having these discussions. I hope everybody who has watched it has enjoyed it as well. It's been a lot of fun. Now we'll be able to rest easy on Karate Kid and move on to other projects that we've talked about wanting to do. Maybe get our top 7 lists back on, do a couple other things. But it's been really enjoyable, and I hope everyone's enjoyed watching it.
And we still have one episode about Karate Kid, to at least one of several, but there's at least one that will be the defense of the Jaden Smith Karate Kid. That is coming because I'm ready to fight that battle.
There is no defense. You will die.
We'll see. All right. Well, thanks for watching. If you stayed through all of this, share your comments below. Let us know what you think, or if there's things that we missed, or what your predictions are about the coming season. Tell us about that, and we definitely want to see those, and we'll respond. But share, like, follow, subscribe. I'm just gonna enjoy some of the fun and keep up with it. But in the meantime, I'm Tim Wild,
and I am Josh Edlow.
Thanks for watching Saints on Cinema. We'll catch you next time. Yeah, I put the name at the top of the episode because I like figuring out why they named it that.
I didn't even realize they named it like that because I actually wrote down on here.
Kind of different.
No, because I was thinking about that because as they were sitting at the bar, I started thinking. I remember when Mr. Miyagi said that Ali and Daniel looked different but
the same. Ah.
And so
no, different but different. I'm just an idiot.
Yeah. No, I'm just really angry right now. Different. But different. Give me a car, I'll feel better.
Oh, hey, Daniel, such an idiot. All right.